The last thing I'll ask then is what you hope will happen.
Oh, that's right now the situation looks pretty grim. I mean, it's hard to find hope anywhere in what I'm seeing. I hope that Israel will get over this rage that has consumed Israeli public opinion, and many of their supporters, as a consequence of October 7th, will come to their senses and will realize they can't solve this problem with force, that this problem is unsolvable with force. In fact, force exacerbates it. It's essential that they understand that. It's essential also that they do something that's going to be extremely hard for them, which is to relieve themselves of this victim complex. Israel is not the victim in this. Israelis were victims on the 7th of October. 800 civilians were victims. There's no question. But in a situation where Israel has been oppressing and kicking out and occupying the Palestinians for 75 years, Israel is not the victim. The Palestinians are the victim. They have to get over that idea that because the history of the Jewish people involves century after century and century of victimization, that a victimizer cannot, that a historical victim cannot be a victimizer. They have to overcome that. That's a real problem. Because if you assume, because we're victims, historic victims, nothing we do can be criticized, you'd have a problem. And they do have a problem. It's not just the rage and the anger and the pain and the trauma of October 7th. This is rooted in a deeper issue where they cannot come to grips with the fact that what they have done to the Palestinians has caused the problem that they face today. And that unless they recognize that and deal with that and say, well, we won't deal with it with force, we'll figure out some way that these two peoples can live together. And that involves a third thing that they're going to have to do. There is going to have to be a recognition that there are two peoples here. Now, a lot of Palestinians don't accept that, but a whole lot of Israelis don't accept that. And in the case of Israel, that is part of the Israeli constitution. As of 2018, the Israel Nation State of the Jewish People law, and as a result of a variety of other things that this government has done, they argue there's only one people here. Only the Jewish people have the right of national self-determination in the land of Israel by Israeli law, by a basic law that has constitutional force. Well, if you say that, there's no middle ground. We will ground you out. We will destroy you because you don't exist. You don't have a right to exist. That's not just some far-right lunatic Israeli politician. That is a basic law passed by an overwhelming majority of the Israeli Knesset in 2018. They're going to have to get over that. Now, Palestinians have to get over a lot of stuff too. A lot of changes have to happen among Palestinians. If you talk about the rage and the anger and the trauma that drives Israelis, you can only imagine with 1,200, 1,140, whatever the number is, dead on the 7th of October, you can only imagine the rage and the pain in a situation where 42,000 Palestinians have been killed. So both sides have to get over those things and have to come to an understanding that somehow or other there are two peoples here, and they have to figure out how they're going to live in this single land. And it cannot be by the supremacy of one people over another, which is what Zionism argues for. It doesn't argue for an Arab-Jewish state. It doesn't argue for a shared democratic state. It argues for a Jewish state in a majority Arab country. You can't do that. It's not, you could have done it in 1800 or 1700. You can't do that in 2024. And they have to come to terms with that. That's not an easy thing. The desire for a Jewish state has now been, deeply ingrained in people's minds for generations, since the rise of Hitler, or almost 100 years, 90 years, 80 years, whatever it is. And that would have been fine. I mean, you go back to Yusuf Khalidi's letter to Herzl in 1899. He has no problem with Zionism per se, with the idea of Jewish peoplehood per se. He says, but don't do it here, because there's another people here. And that blindness to that, you read Herzl's response and you can see he doesn't see that, he doesn't hear that. That blindness to that reality that you're trying to create a national entity in a place that already has a people is part of the problem. They have to overcome that. If they were able to move in that direction, that would give me hope.